the last and final prophet of Allah. He was a mercy unto the universe. Peace and blessings be on Al-Mustafa. So he began.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace and the mercy of Allah be upon you. Welcome to Hadith Principles. We're studying the principles by which we can analyze the Hadith of the Prophet, the heritage of Islam, of our great scholars who provided the most critical tools of reason and analysis to distinguish hadiths that were falsely attributed to the Prophet Muhammad and protect our authentic hadiths, the heritage of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, which are a major source for Islamic teaching and guidance. We have with us our panel. Welcome, brothers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. As usual, they're here to help us and assist us and provide valuable comments and suggestions and questions. Inshallah, it will be enlightening and beneficial to all of us, inshallah. We're talking about mawdu' hadiths, and the mawdu' hadiths are those which are invented or fabrications. They are not actually hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And we learned about some of the causes that have made people intentionally or unintentionally fabricate. Sometimes people just attributed good sayings or morals or parables to the Prophet, thinking that, well, it's good, so it must belong to the Prophet. Or forgetfully, they thought it was from the Prophet and it really was not. Or they intentionally fabricated things that they knew very well were not hadiths of the Prophet, either to curry political favor or to support their own political cause or their own sect, or maybe their own patriotism of their own country, for example. We're going to look at some of these mawdu' hadiths. And the reason we're studying them is that they're commonly found in books and they're repeated by people commonly in the Muslim world and throughout the world. And people may think they're hadiths of the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him. And I've had people tell me the hadith Qudsi. What's the hadith Qudsi? Hadiths where the Prophet narrates the words from his Lord, from Allah. And they told me, hadith Qudsi it has to be sahih, it can't be da'if. And that's really weird, because if I can fabricate a lie about the Prophet Muhammad, of course I can fabricate a lie about Allah. People have been fabricating lies about Allah since thousands and thousands of years, attributing them, putting them in scriptures. It's called a tahrif and tabdil. Fabricating lies about Allah and claiming it's from Allah, and they say, as Allah says in the Quran, they say, this is the word of Allah, and it's not the word from Allah. They have written it with their own hands. And so this is a hadith, it looks like a hadith Qudsi, but it is not. Allah says, I was a hidden treasure, kuntu kanz al-khafi, and I wish to be known. So I created the mankind, I created the human being, then made myself known to them, and they recognized me. Anybody heard this hadith before? Never know this? You heard that. Yeah. Because this is a hadith is commonly quoted in the books of the Sufis. And so Ibn Arabi quotes that in Futuhat al-Makkiyah, a famous book of his, that contains good hadith and knowledge, but a lot of this kind of stuff is found in the book also. And the idea is, and Allah knows best, is that Allah is in everything and everything is in Allah Almighty. This is not a hadith, but it is commonly quoted. I've seen it recently, and I've seen it in classical books of Sufism. And so Ibn Taymiyyah says about this, it is not from the words of the Prophet, may Allah, peace be upon him, and there's no isnad for it, neither sahih nor da'if. And other scholars, Rakashi, Ibn Hajar, Suyuti, and others agree with him. But then other people will say, well, its meaning is correct. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا يَعْبُدُونَ. I only created the jinn the spirits from fire and the human beings, the creatures of clay, so that they may worship me. And so they say this supports the meaning of this false hadith. Does it really mean the same thing?
No, not at all.
It might appear. But when you look at it, the idea is ma'arifat Allah. Because to the Sufis, the ma'arifah is above the ibadah. The ibadah is for the low people who are simply the servants of Allah and worship Him. But they don't know Allah. The knowledge of Allah is by the kashf, by getting in a trance, and then you feel like you're floating out of your body and you're joining the unity of the universe. You become one with the universe. And so then you know the truth. And then some people, after this experience, they came and said, I am Allah. Or Allah is in me and I am in Him. Or in the famous saying, there's nothing in this thobe, there's nothing in this garment except Allah. Allah is everything and everything is Allah. Astaghfirullah. And so it leads to this kind of excess out of this emotion. So they're going in a trance and they become basically, as they used to say, they used to be drunk or sukran in the love of Allah. So in the love of Allah, you will say anything. Like the drunk person will say anything. You won't hold it against him if he says something. And so they're so drunk with the love of Allah that they say things that are very foolish. So the idea that Allah created the human being to worship and serve Him, that is, to obey Him. Allah doesn't get a benefit from our obedience. The obedience benefits us. But the idea of the hidden treasure is that He needs the knowledge of the human beings. He is in need of the human being, and the human being needs Him. And so the true human, the real human, the perfect man, al-insan al-mathali, as they call the insan, or the verse of the Quran about al-insan, is the ideal man. He has the ma'arifah by kashf. He has a vision of Allah or something in a trance. And so they have the knowledge, not worship. But knowledge is different, and they think higher than worship. So you're in the level of worshipper, then you become one who knows Allah and loves Allah, and Allah loves Him, and then everything you do is worship, so you don't have to pray or fast or those other things, because everything you do is worship. And so Allah knows best. These statements are only the statements of the mystics, and they have nothing to do with the hadith of the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him. And it may be true that there may be an aspect of truth to this meaning, but the way that it is used in the books of the Sufis is not authentic and has no relationship to the sunnah of the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him. Okay, here's another one. It also appears to be a hadith Qudsi.
Excuse me, sir. And even the wording of the text of the hadith clearly indicates that it is not an authentic hadith.
It doesn't, the text doesn't bear any relationship to the known hadith of the Prophet or to the Quran. You might be able to interpret it in a way that would be in harmony with Islam, but that would take some effort on your part. And so our primary duty in Islam is ibadah and worship. But they say that the ma'arifah and knowledge of Allah is actually, a higher level than the ibadah or worship of Allah. Another one, were it not for you, O Muhammad, I would not have created the universe.
I've heard
that before, yes.
So Allah only created the universe for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that is, of course, mawdu'. But then they will say, but its meaning is correct. How is the meaning of that correct? Were it not for you, the world would not have been created. How could that meaning be correct?
Because Allah tells us why He created the universe in the Quran.
Well, He created the universe so that we would worship Him. And He sent the prophets and messengers to teach us how to worship Him. And the Prophet Muhammad was the final messenger. That's what they mean by the meaning is correct. But is that really what this hadith means? The people who are saying that hadith, is that what they mean? No. What they're saying is the people, when they celebrate the Mawlid, they call that the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad, but they're celebrating that all the universe was created out of the light of Muhammad. Peace and blessing be upon him. And because of the Prophet Muhammad, he's not a real human being like us, and so it's wrong to say he's merely a human being. And I even got emails that were sent out all over America this year in Rabi al-Awwal about the Mawlid, that it's wrong to say he's merely a human being. Yes, he's a human being, but he's much higher than a human being. He was created before Adam, and he was, had the light of Allah, and etc., etc. And so the meaning of this is not that the meaning which is found in the Quran about the role of the prophets and the role of the Khatam al-Anbiya, the final seal of the messengers, but it's about that the whole universe is only created by the Prophet Muhammad in a mystical way, and so he is not a simple a mere human being like all of us. And so, in fact, it is mawdu', and so some scholars defend it by its meaning, but there really is no appropriate meaning there. Or in Ihya Ulumuddin, Ghazali narrates, neither, and this is once again from Allah, neither my heaven nor my earth could contain me, but the soft, humble heart of my believing slave can contain me. Yeah.
This in meaning, not literally.
Yes. And so Al-Iraqi says in his notes on Al-Ihya, I do not find a basis for it. And Asyuti agrees with him, and Zarkashi. And Iraqi then said, but in a Tabarani there's a similar hadith that says, the vessels of your Lord are the hearts of his righteous slaves, and the most beloved to him are the softest and most tender ones. But that has no relationship. This meaning is that Allah is in the heart. Not that the hearts know Allah and they are tender. So of course, the hearts which are servants of Allah, sincere and know their Lord, they are tender and soft. It doesn't have that same meaning. And Ibn Taymiyyah said, it is mentioned from the Israeli traditions, Israeliyat. And there is no known isnad from the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. And so that it is mawdu'. There is no isnad from it. But this is the idea that the one who has the highest level is not the servant of Allah, but the one who knows Allah and Allah is in him and he is in Allah, etc., etc. And so it can be very used to the idea that Allah is incarnate. So if Allah is in a heart of one person, what's the difference saying Allah is in Jesus or Allah is in me? Or Allah is in everybody? It's saying the same thing. So if we say, well, it's haram to say Allah is in Jesus, then it would be the same thing to say Allah is in anybody's heart. And so these kind of hadiths clearly are fabrications. And even though there may be some aspect that is similar to authentic hadiths, when you look at them very carefully, you see they are very dangerous. We'll go for a break and we'll be back shortly. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Muhammad is the last and final prophet of Allah. Muhammad is the last and final prophet of Allah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace and the mercy of Allah be upon you, and welcome back to Hadith Principles. Before the break, we're talking about some mawdu' hadiths, which are related as if they were sayings that the Prophet was relating from Allah, his Lord, Azza wa Jal, and they are actually, fabricated by the mystics and have a mystic meaning, which is not in harmony with the clear meaning of the Quran or the Sunnah, inshallah. Did you have a question? Anybody have a question about any of those?
Well, the hadith you said earlier that some people say that that's true. Allah is the hidden treasure, that hadith. But is there any connection between that hadith and a verse where it says in the Quran that He created us so that we may know that there's one God?
Or Allah said, no, that there... in the Quran, that the first commandment is to know Allah Almighty, to know your Lord and worship Him, or something like that. I mean, the first commandment, of course, is to worship Allah. I'budullah. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How do you worship Allah? To know He is your Lord, your Creator. None is like unto Him. Laysa kamithlihi shay. There's none like unto Him. His attributes are all perfect and complete and above the attributes of human beings. And so that is what is meant by knowledge of Allah, and then knowing His commandments, what is halal and haram, how to worship Him and serve Him as taught by the prophets. But that hadith is instead talking about mystical knowledge, which does not add to any knowledge. Nothing that you have in a dream or a vision can add to the knowledge of the Quran and Sunnah. You might in a dream be inspired to love Allah or love Islam or love the hadith. And many of the ulama, for example, they wrote books in the fiqh or in the hadith, and they said, I wrote that book after seeing a dream, and the Prophet, by that dream he understood the Prophet was wanting him to write or to teach something. And so they were inspired by a dream to do something which is halal in Islam or taught by Islam, not to add something to Islam. And so it's not allowed for us by visions and mystical experiences to add something to our knowledge and worship of Allah Almighty.
Excuse me.
Yes, brother.
I have a question, please. In previous episodes, you mentioned some criteria for distinguishing the fabricated traditions. But pondering over the traditions which you have just mentioned today, we can see clearly that in the wording and the phraseology of these traditions, it is very clear. It's very clear that these it contain even some grammatical errors.
Yes.
So is containing such grammatical errors and some mistakes in the phraseology and in the phraseology and in the wording can be considered as a criterion for distinguishing a mawdu' hadith or a fabricated hadith?
Yeah, there are cases, mashallah, jazakallah, where, for example, in the dream, like Salat al-Fatih, that he wanted to say the straightest path. And so instead of saying al-aqwam, mustaqim means straight.
Yes.
And more than that is aqwam. But he said astaqam, which is clearly ungrammatical Arabic.
Yes.
So any Arabic scholar would clearly identify that as a forgery. And so that was, of course, claimed that Salat al-Fatih would be a replacement for praying the daily prayers if you recited that every day based on a dream or a vision. And so, of course, things which were ungrammatical or in contradiction in meaning or in the way that the Prophet ﷺ used to speak and the topics he used to speak. So they would attribute to the Prophet things that are from the speech of philosophers and mystics. They have really no relationship to the speech of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He never talked in the way that mystics and philosophers taught. He who knows himself knows his Lord. Anybody hear this before?
Yes,
if you know, min araf nafsahu, araf rabbu. An-Nawawi said it is not established, in other words, as a hadith. Ibn Taymiyyah says it's mawdu', fabricated. As-Sam'ani said it is not known as marfu', but it is quoted as a statement of Yahya ibn Mu'adh al-Razi. Razi means he's from Ray, which is by Tehran in Iran. A lot of scholars of hadith one time came from the eastern part of the Islamic world, from Iran, Afghanistan, Central Asia. And so anybody whose name is Razi, like Fakhruddin Razi or others, they come from what is now Tehran. At that time, it wasn't a Shiite country. It was actually full of scholars of the Sunnah. And As-Suyuti agreed with An-Nawawi and also said this hadith is not authentic. It is not a prophetic statement. Although most of the people think it is hadith, it is in fact related to Israelite traditions. O man, know yourself, you will know your Lord. And so these kind of quotations are found in the books of the Sufis and the mystics also, such as Muhyiddin ibn Arabi and others. And so Ibn Arabi says this hadith, although it is not proved by the way of hadith, by the scholars of hadith, it is proved to us by kashf. Kashf means literally to open, unveil, to take away the veil. So when you're having a vision, suddenly you see the truth. The truth doesn't come through the Quran or the books, it comes through a vision. And so what you experience during a vision or dream, it cancels out what is in the words of the Quran or in the hadith. And so by saying something is authentic by kashf is really to cancel out Islam, because anybody could say anything, a dream, any kind of dream or vision. And so then Islam would have no meaning, and there would be no purpose of sending prophets and revealing scriptures if all of us can just make up our religion by a dream or a vision. Then why did Allah send? If we can all have dreams and go by that, why would Allah send us the Prophet? Why would He reveal the Quran? Here's one. I'm going to ask if you guys know this. Hubb al-Watan. Love of your homeland is part of faith. Min al-Iman. Hubb al-Watan. Did anybody hear this hadith?
No.
Love of the homeland. This is usually quoted in the, especially Islamic world, so-called, about being patriotic and loving your country. And As-Saghani and others say this is mawdu', it's not a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. But some people will say, well, its meaning, it might be correct. Okay, but everybody loves the place they're born in. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he loved Makkah.
Yes.
He never wanted to leave Makkah. but he was forced to leave Makkah, and he never lived in Makkah again, even though he could have gone back. He didn't. He chose as his homeland the place of Iman and Islam, his companions, the Muhajirin and Ansar, and he never left. He made the Hajj and went back. He never built his house and lived in his house again in Makkah. And so everybody, you're born in a country, you grow up in that place, you love the things about it, the things are familiar, your people, your parents and grandparents and neighbors, you love that. But every part of the world, it has good and bad. Every part you will find wise people and foolish people, Muslims or non-Muslims, or beautiful nature. Some places are desert, and some places are sea, and some places are mountains, and different climates, and all the world is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some places are special, and that is by revelation. So we know that the visit to 3 mosques, 3 parts of the world, to go there to pray or worship Allah is rewarded and is special. Makkah,
the prophetic mosque,
Medina,
and the Al-Aqsa Mosque,
and Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. Those 3 mosques are special. Every place in the world, it's equal. The rulings in every place, other than the Haram of Makkah, whatever is halal in one place, halal in the other place. Basically, except for certain conditions that may change that. But other places, everybody loves their homeland. And so they've used this to justify nationalism and excessive patriotism. But of course, there's nothing wrong with loving your nation or your homeland if you're proud of your nation. So you want to make sure that Islam is practiced in your nation, and you want to remind your fellow citizens of Islam, and you love your fellow citizens, so you want to guide them to the truth, that's a good thing. But if it leads you to being arrogant and haughty and disrespecting people of other nations and being a racist or denying the rights of people of other countries, then it is not a good thing.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Some people say that, and they have the mentality that if you are a Muslim, you can't be loyal to a country. Is that true or not? And would you please shed more light on this?
Wherever Muslims are, we have to be loyal to our country and protect the rights of our fellow citizens. We have a mithaq with our covenant with all the people around us. They will give us our right of our religion and respect our human right. And we have to respect other people's rights to their religion and their human rights. And we have to support whatever is good. And we have to work to change whatever is bad, whether it's a Muslim country or non-Muslim country. We work to reform this society and to remove evil and oppression and to guide people, Allah knows best, to what is right. May Allah Almighty strengthen us in our faith, our iman, and in our practice of Islam. May Allah Almighty guide all of us through the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Muhammad is the last and final prophet of Allah. He was a mercy unto the universe. Peace and blessings be on Al-Mustafa. So he began this perfect man, sending his word across the land, leading only by his sunnah and the Quran, the word of Allah. He brought the answer to this cruel world, our beloved Prophet Muhammad.